Good Saturday afternoon, and welcome to my October forecast video. It is September the 30th, 2017. Tomorrow is the first day of October, so it is now time to dig into what I think this month is going to offer for our region. Right now, we're going to start out with the details, and at the very end of the video, I will show you guys a slide that I made with all of my thoughts put into one. So if you just want to see that, fast forward to the very end. But if you want to know the details, my thoughts behind everything, this is where it begins. So we're looking at two areas that I circled right here. This is the PNA and this is the NAO. These are both right now showing a positive NAO and a negative PNA. A negative PNA leads to warmer than normal temperatures in the eastern portion of the U.S., and this positive NAO leads to warmer than normal temperatures in the eastern and central U.S. So both of these right now are coming out to the same solution for our portion of the country, but these are at the sea surface level, and these are both showing below average sea surface temperature anomalies. And in the Greenland area, when we see below average sea surface temperature anomalies, that does indicate that we're looking at a lot of trough coming into this portion of the globe just south of Greenland. If we were looking at above sea surface temperature anomalies, above average sea surface temperature anomalies, then we would be looking at more chances for blocking to be happening. And blocking in portions of Greenland, we call it Greenland blocking, and that usually equals a lot of cool air coming into the eastern and central portion of the United States. But right here is the PNA, and we're looking at below average sea surface temperature anomalies there. And this is where we are also looking at for the Bering Sea rule, which does say that anywhere between 16 and 21 days ahead of time, if we're looking at whatever pattern you see here, you can overlay that into portions of the U.S. and you get around the same solution. So this is showing you right here, this would be showing cooler than normal temperatures in the eastern part of the United States around the middle of October, 16 to 21 days from today. And so this right now is going to be indicating really below average temperatures once we get into the middle of the month, but the first set of the month is going to be a different story. Right here is a map that I put together showing you three of my analog years. Analogs are years that are similar to the year that you're forecasting. So we're forecasting for the month of October, and 3 years that I mentioned or that I found over the last 67 years were 1950, 1984, and 2005. Now, all three of those years were weak La Nina fall months. They were weak La Nina, October-like conditions, and I wanted to dig a little bit deeper and said, okay, we have several years where we looked at La Nina conditions in the 3.4 region in the Pacific, but I wanted to dig a little bit deeper and find October months that we saw a weakening trend, and not only a weakening trend, but a fast weakening trend in the ENSO 3.4 region like we're seeing right now, which would eventually lead to a La Nina, a possibly weak to moderate La Nina by the time we get into the middle of winter. So I wanted to find years that we also not only saw weak La Nina, but a weakening trend in the La Nina 3.4 region. So this is showing you all three of those years had both of those characteristics, and they also saw a very active hurricane season, which is what we've seen this last summer and the beginning of fall, something that could continue into the end of fall and the beginning of winter. 1984 was a very active hurricane season and actually lasted all the way up until November the 30th, and so this is something that we could be looking at this year as well. But we're not going to focus too much on hurricanes right now, but just know that we are seeing some similarities between this year and the 3 years that I have right here. And not only did we look at all three of those components, but we also saw at the 250 millibar level zonal winds coming in off of the Pacific, and what that usually equals is a very big flood of mild Pacific air into the lower 48, but usually the only portion of the United States that sees below average temperatures from that sort of event is the very western United States coast, because they see so much activity coming in off of the Pacific, which leads to clouds and rain, leads to below normal temperatures. But most of the country usually goes above average when that sort of scenario happens, which is something that is going to be continuing to happen, something that has been happening over the month of September, over the last couple of weeks, and something that could continue as we go into the rest of the month of October. And so we put all three of those years together, we get very above average temperatures in the central and eastern part of the United States, and we get below average temperatures in the west, and this does equal my idea since this map was made by me once we put these 3 years together. Here is the 500 millibar level. This is geopotential height, and we're looking at below geopotential. We're looking at geopotential height anomalies coming down in portions of the P&A region and in the NAO region. These two areas that I circled look very similar to what this map is right here. Below average here, below average here. And we're also looking at that same scenario in those two portions, which does equal does enhance to the fact or to the opinion that I do think that above average temperatures are possible for the month of October. We are looking at some drought conditions happening right now in portions of our country. This is all below average, or rather above average down here, because of an active hurricane season. Now, I do believe that if we didn't see an active hurricane season, that they would be just about at the same stage of drought that we are right now. Abnormally dry is where we are at this point. Moderate drought conditions are already taking hold in portions of Illinois and then Missouri. We're also looking at drought conditions there also. This is additional precipitation needed to eventually come back to average as far as precipitation anomalies. And right now, we would need anywhere between really 3 to even up to 9 inches of rain in portions of Missouri and Illinois. None of this in western Kentucky as of right now, but it's not too far away from us. It's knocking on our doorstep, so something we're going to have to keep a very close eye on over the next month. And so this is what I think precipitation-wise we're going to be looking at. These are the same 3 years that I already talked to you guys about. That above average precipitation here due to the activity coming in off of the eastern Pacific Ocean into the western United States coast. We look at cold air, really the mean or average cold air pool of cold air in the northwestern United States, southwestern Canada, and we're also looking at the mean area of warm air to be in the eastern United States. The southeast United States, as that southeast ridge really kicks in over the next month. Both of those two clash together in this circle right here, equaling to a very active and possibly a uptick in severe weather season over the next couple of months, and at least over the next month of October. So looking at above average precipitation anomalies there, those are coming out to verify. And we're looking at tropical concerns along the eastern seaboard, which could equal to above average precipitation as well. Meanwhile, we're sort of stuck in the middle. So really anything that we see over the next month would be from cold fronts. Any rain that we would see would be associated with some cold fronts. So that's all we can hope for right now. But right now it looks like we're stuck between the two areas of uptick in above normal precipitation. We're just kind of stuck in the middle with any of those weakening cold fronts we could get some remaining raindrops from, and not looking at really any tropical activity to be making it all the way up into our region. This is all supported by the CFSV2 precipitation model. This is showing you guys above average precipitation in portions of the eastern United States. But if I had to change this map, this is the closest map that I could find to my map right here that I made. This map right here is showing you guys above average precipitation a little bit further west than what this map right here shows. This is all on the eastern seaboard, whereas I think right here we should move all of this just a little bit further to the left a little bit. So this is actually below average precipitation right here. I'm sorry, the blue indicates above average precipitation. So this is all correct right here, but I would like to move this a little bit further to the west to where it's locked right in between the area of activity right here, indicating that above average precipitation, and we are looking at above average precipitation along the Gulf or along the east U.S. coast. So I would like to move this a little bit further west, but overall, this is all very similar to this map right here. So right now, this is the MJO. So we've already looked at what we could look at temperature and precipitation-wise. The MJO, the Madden-Julian Oscillation Index, is showing us that as we look towards the very end of the month, we're looking at the index moving into the 4 and 5 index region, which would come out to a solution right here. Phase 4 and Phase 5 during the September, October, November timeframe of the year, basically our fall months, show below average temperatures for portions of the eastern United States. So that tells me that once we get towards the middle and end of the month, we could be looking at below average temperatures coming back into our region after the first half of the month is indicating above average temperatures. If we look at those same phases, 4 and 5, that indicates above average precipitation in phase 4, but below average precipitation in phase 5, which all goes back to what this map right here had, mixed signals for portions of the country in our region. So right now, my October forecast, putting all of my thoughts right there together, is showing a positive NAO, a negative PNA, and a weak La Nina. That all comes out to above average temperatures at the surface, and we're also looking at below average precipitation. Once we look at the breakdown by weeks, week 1, above average temperatures, If you look at my weekly weather briefing that I posted earlier on this morning, you would know that above average temperatures are coming for this week, and below average precipitation is continuing. I have high confidence in that. That's what that HC is representing. Now, week 2 is indicating below average temperatures coming in. That MJO, like I mentioned, is indicating below average temperatures moving into this portion of the country, and would also equal below average temperatures in week 4 as well. But in week 2, we're looking at average precipitation. We're looking at a cold front coming in this upcoming Saturday, and going into the number 2 week, week 2, we're looking at some fluctuations between cold fronts, and we're looking at probably average precipitation from that. Medium confidence for that scenario occurring. Week 3 is indicating an above average temperature department, above average temperatures happening. As we look at that, any below average temperatures coming into the region, guys, looks to be transient, and so above average temperatures look to come back into the region by week 3 with average precipitation. Some of those cold fronts still continuing. Low confidence in that, because there is a small chance that these below average temperatures in week 2 could linger into week 3 and play a big role into the temperature anomalies in week 3. Week 4 looks like below average temperatures come back into the region according to the MJO, and we're looking at below average precipitation for that same time frame. It looks like I have medium confidence in that. So you tell me right now, you say, okay, you say above average temperatures twice, and you say below average temperatures twice, so why wouldn't we be looking at average temperatures for the month of October? The problem is that any time that we're looking at below average temperatures for the month of October, not saying that there is not going to be any really big prudent shots of cold air, but we could be looking at a couple of cool shots, not necessarily cold shots. So we're looking at cool shots to be coming into the region. Anytime that we're looking at below average temperatures for this month, I don't think they're going to be very big cold shots. I think we're just going to be looking at transient cool shots coming into the region, nothing out of the ordinary. And so below average temperatures over the next month, anytime I say that, is normally going to mean just slightly below average, not anything far from ordinary or far-fetched from average. Not to say that we can't have one big cold shot come in. That is always a possibility when we're changing seasons like we are right now. But we're looking at any time we're looking at that above average temperature area to be coming back into our region. It does look like warmer temperatures are going to be winning out. We're going to be looking at above average temperatures for the majority of the month, and then we're going to be looking at some periods of below average temperatures, but they're not going to be as far from average, whereas the above average temperatures are going to be more far-fetched from average rather than the below average temperatures, if that makes sense. So this is my forecast as of right now. Climatology-wise, from the month of October, we usually see our first frost around mid-October and our first freeze around the end of October into the very beginning of November. And so that is something that we're going to keep an eye on. I do think that both of those are going to be delayed. I'm not thinking that we're looking at any freezing conditions coming until November, and we're probably not going to be looking at any frost-like conditions coming until the end of the month. So it looks like both of those are going to be delayed. They were delayed last year. They look to be delayed this year, all because we're looking at that ridging coming back into the central and eastern portion of the country, zonal winds coming in from the western U.S. coast, and we're looking at that weak La Nina pattern indicating a strong southeast ridge and Pacific North American cold, both staying in those two positions for the majority of the month, all coming out to this graphic right here. So nonetheless, hopefully this forecast pans out. I hope you have a great month. This is the first really official fall month where we look at fall-like temperatures and conditions throughout the entire month. Leaves, the peak fall foliage is going to be coming in here in just a couple of weeks. So some beautiful paintings, beautiful, pictures coming in over the next couple of weeks as we look at a very fall-like pattern coming in for the next couple of weeks, but could be looking at some fluctuations between above average and below average temperatures over the next month.